30 seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Live from the Play Show, yet not overly ostentatious studios of CBS Sports Radio here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor of 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on in to a Wednesday edition of the Zach Gelb Show across all the great local CBS Sports Radio affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and of course, streaming live on YouTube, youtube.com/CBS Sports Radio. 855-212-4CBS, number to jump on in, 855-212-4227. You could always get at me on Instagram, where I'm straight flexing, or via the good old cesspool of Twitter, at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. Got Pat Boyle and Moist Mike rocking and rolling with me all the way up until 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Chris Peterson, the former Washington and Boise State head coach, is going to drop by 20 minutes from now. And Fozzie Whitaker, the former Texas Longhorn and Carolina Panther, will join us at 4:20 p.m. Eastern, 1:20 p.m. Pacific. I actually want to start the show with some audio today. And I don't know why. Maybe this is just because I am a football guy and I'm a football junkie and I love the NFL draft. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I love like the second and third and the fourth and the fifth and the sixth and the seventh round of the NFL draft. Like, I give a lot of credit to people like Chris Trapasso and all these NFL draft insiders, Mel Kiper, and also Todd McShay, Todd, when it comes to the way that they're able to put together a mock draft of every pick through 7 rounds. Because as much as I know about football, and as much as I know about college football, there has to be some level, and I say this in actually a praising way, even though it's going to come off as like a bully type of way, but it's not meant that way. There has to be a level of a football nerd for you to be able to do a 7-round mock draft. Like, I would just not care, like, after the second round. I think I can get through 2 rounds of mock selections, but once you get to the 3rd round, and I have to debate, do you contemplate taking a kicker? Which offensive lineman do you go? Which cornerback, 30th off the board, are you going to go? That's just not for me. But I do think a lot of us, we find the quarterbacks and how many quarterbacks will go in the first round to be the most intriguing conversation each and every year of the NFL draft. And 2 years ago, we all thought, like 3 guys would go, and only 1 did go, and it was Kenny Pickett. And then last year, you had a bunch of guys go in the first few picks, and then you had a little bit of a drop-off before you eventually did hear Will Levis's name get called in the 2nd round. But this year, it's shaping up to be one of those years where I still just don't know what it's going to turn out to be. Like, obviously, Caleb Williams is going to be a first-round pick. Drake May is going to be a first-round pick. I think Michael Penix Jr. has played himself into the first round. Jaden Daniels is going to be a first-round pick. So those are 4 right there. And then it's how many more guys do declare and how many guys end up saying, okay, I'm going to leave college and enter the pros, and will you be thrown into the first-round conversation? Like, I love J.J. McCarthy personally as a college quarterback. I'm not a believer in J.J. McCarthy as a pro quarterback, but I was reading a piece the other day on ESPN that was basically saying if McCarthy leaves Michigan, he'll be a first-round quarterback. So the 4 names right now that I'm really in on are Caleb Williams, Drake May, Michael Penix Jr., and Jaden Daniels. And we were told since the start of the season that the 2 guys, and no matter what happened, 1 or 2 in the NFL draft, the first 2 picks were going to be Caleb Williams and Drake May. And as we sit here right now, 1 week left in the season, and all we know is that the first overall pick is going to be Chicago, it's not a lock that the Bears are taking a quarterback. And I have argued this before, and I've been saying this for about a week and a half now. I am on team, keep Justin Fields, trade back to 2 or 3, have the Commanders or Patriots come up, and you get the best of both worlds where you keep Fields, you get some draft capital back, and then, oh yeah, by the way, you go make sure to draft Marvin Harrison Jr., and you take Marvin Harrison Jr., you throw him in the same wide receiving room as DJ Moore, and you have Justin Fields, and you have a nice trifecta to really build on moving forward. But as easy as I could argue that, someone could give me a call at 855-212-4CBS and say, Zach, you're crazy. They should take Caleb Williams. Or Zach, you're crazy. They should take Drake May. So I don't know that it's going to be quarterbacks 1 and 2 off the board. I don't. Because if the Bears get a call maybe from a team at 8, I don't know if they should move back that many spots. Now, you could argue maybe they take another wide receiver and they're okay with passing up for enough first-round picks to say goodbye to Marvin Harrison Jr. because you move back to 8, you're not going to get him. I'm just throwing numbers out there. But I'd be more than fine if Chicago elected to take Marvin Harrison Jr. in at number 1. I do believe, though, in some way, the first 3 picks of the draft, in whatever order you want, will be pertaining to these 3 players. Marvin Harrison Jr., Caleb Williams, and Drake May. How those players go 1, 2, 3, I don't know. We got to see how this week plays on out, what the speculation is on Chicago. But one way or another, I really do believe those will be the first 3 players in some order off the board in this NFL draft. But Michael Penix Jr. now is the name that is rising up draft boards. And since I like Chris Trapasso a lot, and I like Ryan Wilson a lot, I went to their latest mock draft, and they already have one out, which is crazy. And let's just go with Ryan Wilson because it's the latest. This was on the 2nd day of January, so yesterday. He had Caleb Williams going 1 to the Commanders, who would trade up. Then he had the Patriots at 2 taking Drake May, and then Marvin Harrison Jr. at number 3 to Chicago. Now, the next quarterback that he had off the board was Jaden Daniels to the New York Giants in at number 5. And then another quarterback does not go until 11, and that is Michael Penix Jr. And let's see, does he have any other quarterbacks in the first round? Right now, he does not. So he has 4 first-round quarterbacks, the 4 first-round quarterbacks that I think will go. But that name, Michael Penix Jr., which I don't know why, that people are just starting to realize how good of a quarterback this guy is. Maybe it's because 2 reasons. One, we're very stubborn as a society. And when Michael Penix Jr. was at Indiana, you remember him for being injured. So once he transfers to Washington, no one, like not even the Kalen DeBoer, the head coach of Washington, who knew him from Indiana, could have predicted that he would have had these 2 monster seasons. And he would have been one of the better quarterbacks in the country for the last 2 seasons. Where there was a big Heisman push last year towards the end for Michael Penix Jr., and this year he finished 2nd. And he has been sensational. So with that being said, I think people already had their opinion on Michael Penix Jr., and for whatever the reason is, they didn't want to move off of that. Or maybe it's just the nature of the East Coast, West Coast thing, where I know that there's a ton of Pac-12 games now that are played at 3:30 p.m. Eastern or at noon because of the TV deals, but there are a lot of games that are played late at night, and maybe you just didn't watch a lot of Washington football. But Washington has been the team that has been disrespected all throughout the year. Now, before the season, I picked them to win the Pac-12. But, and I even became a victim to this as well, and I'm at fault of this and guilty of it as well. Even after Washington beat Oregon, down the stretch of the season, there was a lot more of a push because of the way that Oregon was playing, and Washington had some close games, and their offense wasn't always humming in every game down the stretch where people started to think Oregon was the better team. And not only that, Oregon, remember in that Pac-12 championship game, they were a 9.5-point favorite. So Washington was disrespected going into the Pac-12 championship game. And even though they were undefeated, they go and play Texas in the Sugar Bowl. And I thought that was the easiest bet I've ever made at plus 4.5. Because even if you thought they were going to lose, they were not going to lose that game by more than 4.5 points. They weren't going to lose that game by 5 points. And Washington, even though they had a rocky finish at the end, from start to finish, were the better team. And you saw so many big throws by Michael Penix Jr. in that game. And it's one thing to have 3 extremely talented wide receivers and have an offensive-minded coach and be in the right system, but you still got to throw the football. And Michael Penix Jr., his accuracy and his pinpoint accuracy in that game, with everyone now watching, even though the game was so late, that's like the irony of it too. There's so many people that don't stay up during the regular season to watch these games. College football playoff, you're going to stay up and watch it. And he was sensational in the contest. And he's a great leader. He's a team guy. Remember the Heisman Trophy? Now, you could dress the way that you want, but he had all the teammates' names, did this as a surprise, engraved into his suit, stitched into his suit, which was very nice, and he's throwing the ball great. So I asked this question yesterday to Greg McElroy, and I said to him, how far are you willing to go with the Michael Penix Jr. praise when you compare him to Caleb Williams and you compare him to Drake May and the rest of the quarterbacks in this draft class? And this is what Greg McElroy, the former Alabama quarterback and SEC Network analyst, had to say.
If you want to go just sheerly on arm talent alone, he's the most talented passer in the country. And he's the most talented passer in the quarterback class. If I had to have a rookie playing in the NFL right now, and I need to win, and I'm a coach that needs to win to preserve my job, the quarterback I want under center in year number 1 is Michael Penix. I think he's going to have the easiest transition from college to pro because he's already playing in an NFL-style system, and he's already executing at a high level, NFL-caliber throws.
And we are a copycat league, and I'm not directly comparing him to this player, but what Greg just kind of said was similar to the way that we talked about C.J. Stroud last year, where people knew C.J. Stroud was going to go early. I'm not saying Michael Penix Jr. is going to be the second overall pick in this draft. But a lot of people last year said the most NFL-ready quarterback was C.J. Stroud. A lot of people said that. And C.J. Stroud ends up landing at 2 to the Texans, and he's on the verge of potentially going to the playoffs this weekend. So Michael Penix Jr. being the most NFL-ready quarterback and a guy that if he has the talent, you think he could win right away, maybe this time next year we're talking about a sensational rookie season for Michael Penix Jr. And also, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world if you're a talented quarterback to be the 3rd or 4th quarterback off the board. Because then, as long as you're not going in the top 5, and I don't think we will see 4 quarterbacks go in the top 5. You may see 3. Because Jaden Daniels could be the 3rd quarterback taken off the board. It could be Michael Penix Jr. But I do believe what Greg said about the injury concerns. That's going to push Michael Penix Jr. a little bit further down the first round. I would still imagine he goes top 15. I would still imagine he goes top 20. Like, I can't see him falling past 15 or 20, really, in the NFL draft. But the further he falls, in theory, you're going to a better team. And I'll just throw out 2 teams right now that I think he could walk into next year and be a playoff contender with. Those 2 teams would be the Minnesota Vikings and actually the Las Vegas Raiders. So hear me out on Minnesota. Minnesota has an offensive-minded coach in Kevin O'Connell. They have 2 young wide receivers. One is the best receiver in the game right now, and Justin Jefferson when healthy. And then Addison via Pitt and USC, where he won the Blitnikoff Award at Pitt. That's a pretty damn good situation to walk into. Plus, you have Hawkinson coming off an injury, and KJ Osborne is a solid number 3 wide receiver. That's a good spot to go into, and you're playing in a dome in Minnesota. Now, the Raiders, I think a lot of people could say, Zach, come on. The Raiders are toxic. And I know if they keep Antonio Pierce, that's a defensive-minded coach, but you could be a defensive-minded coach and still win in this league. And you got to give Davante Adams a reason to want to stay. You run this back next year with Aiden O'Connell and Jimmy G as your starter, one of them, I could guarantee you this, Davante Adams is going to request a trade. But you draft a young quarterback, a Michael Penix Jr., you got something there. And maybe you're able to keep Josh Jacobs there. Because that's the big misnomer. The Raiders were toxic last year. But guys like Max Crosby, Josh Jacobs, and Davante Adams, they all want to be Raiders. But they didn't want to be a Raider anymore with Josh McDaniels as the head coach because this guy could mess up a one-car funeral when you give him the keys and tell him to go drive the car. And I'll just float out one other team. And I think this team's a good destination, and they need a quarterback. And I would love to see them get Jaden Daniels because of the speed that he brings. That's Atlanta. Like, Atlanta's got Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier, Kyle Pitts, Drake London. They got a ton of potential. They got a ton of talent. Now, I would get rid of Arthur Smith, and I'd bring in a new coach, and I'd bring in a new quarterback as well, because as much as I love saying Taylor Ham-Heineke, he's not the answer. And we know Desmond Ridder is not the answer as well. So I do believe Michael Penix Jr. is going to be a top 15 pick. And when you start to look at the options, Minnesota, the Raiders, Atlanta, maybe a team like the Saints, Denver, I don't know if you have to take a quarterback this year, but you need a quarterback of the future. Maybe even Seattle. Like, could you imagine Michael Penix Jr. staying out there and going to Seattle where you have DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and Jackson Smith-Njigba? I don't know if he'll be there where Seattle's picking, but that would be a heck of a fit for Pete Carroll to continue the rest of his career, getting that guy as his quarterback. So I like Michael Penix Jr. Michael Penix Jr. is giving you more and more of a reason to believe, as long as he stays healthy, that he could be a very successful NFL pro quarterback. All righty, we'll take a break here on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. When we come on back, former Washington coach, former Boise State head coach, Chris Peterson will join us. We'll get his thoughts on this Washington Huskies team.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
The Zach Gelb Show is on the air across the nation on CBS Sports Radio.
Let's just say I'm an NFL GM, and I call you up and I go, Kalen DeBoer, I'm thinking about using an early first-round pick on Michael Penix Jr. Why should I use it?
He throws a ball that he can throw it wherever he wants, as far down the field. He throws a really catchable ball. The receivers just get these balls that are nice. Ball placement is elite. He processes things very quickly. I think all that's applicable to be able to make that transition to the next level.
Here's Zach Gelb.
All righty, rocking and rolling. It is the Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio. The national championship game is set for Monday night. I'll be in Houston, assuming that the weather holds up nicely here in New York and we have no plane problems, which is always an issue. So let's just hope that we get to Houston in one piece with no delays and no frustration for me, as you'll see Michigan go up against Washington, and the winner will be the college football playoff national champion. And now joining us on the hotline is a man that was the head coach at Boise State and also with those Washington Huskies, and that is Chris Peterson, kind enough to join us on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Coach, appreciate the time. How are you?
I'm good. My pleasure, Zach. How are you?
Well, I'm doing fantastic. So I actually thought of you the other day because I was perusing through Twitter on New Year's Day, and I saw it was the anniversary of that great Fiesta Bowl when you were at Boise State. All these years later, when you look back at that night and what that season meant to you, what are the memories that come back to mind?
It was a good night, no doubt about it. Yeah, in some ways, I was talking to somebody about that the other day. You know, certainly the people from Boise, talk about that game still a bunch. But, in some ways it feels like it just happened a couple years ago. And in some ways it felt like, man, that was a long time ago. And I guess that's kind of how life is in general. But that's what that game feels like to me. Kind of, yeah, I remember so much of it like it was yesterday. But, yeah, that was a long time ago.
There were so many iconic memories from that game. But I always wondered this. Did you know that Ian Johnson was going to propose to his girlfriend afterwards? Did you know that?
No clue. None whatsoever. And, it's so awesome that they're doing so well. He and Chrissy are still, married and doing great and all those things. But it was so weird because, half the nation or so much of it was just so enthralled with that great game But then there was a whole other side of things that people were just so enthralled with the marriage and the proposal and how that was going on. The next day, I think those guys got invited back to New York to one of those morning shows to talk about the proposal. And I'm like, wait, we're talking about that or not? We're not talking about the game? We're talking about the marriage proposal? So it was just kind of one of those things where it was just like a culmination of all kinds of craziness that all happened at one time in Arizona.
That was a blur probably when you're living through it in the moment, and then you look all these years later and you're like, holy heck, now we're in the year of 2024 and so many people have changed from that game. But in all the chaos and the aftermath of that game, when did you realize that the proposal did go down? Like, did you realize right away or did someone have to tell you?
Well, right away, but didn't think much of it till the next day, and then they're getting all these interview requests for the wedding. And what even gets even more wild, I mean, we could talk for so long about this, but what even gets more wild about this, Zach, is I think we fast forward 6 months later. Ian, was only, I think, a sophomore at the time, so he's coming back. The wedding's going to be in the summertime. I'm in a compliance meeting with Ian, Chrissy, her parents, our compliance office, to make sure all this is legal in terms of like fans wanting to send them gifts. And I remember thinking, is this for real that I'm sitting in this meeting right now trying to figure out how to get next year's team ready to go, and we're talking about wedding gifts? But that's how it was back in the day.
Oh, yeah, that's just how ridiculous Chris Peterson, the NCAA, was. Like, I used to I once read an article that you could give players a bagel, but then if you supplied them with cream cheese or butter, it would have been an infraction.
Yes, as well as trail mix was fine as long as there was not M&Ms in it, and you'd have to take that out to give it to them. It was just all kinds of stuff. And, that's part of the reason we are where we are right now, basically with no rules, no restrictions, no nothing, because the NCAA was so far behind on the times and wouldn't adjust and adapt. And so after a while, that's just not gonna fly. And so here we are.
And with everything in life, there's good and bad things. I do think, though, the transfer portal and NIL, it's very good for the players, even though it's an adjustment for the coaches. But it feels like there's no structure right now in college football, and there's no rules. And if we really knew everything that was going on, it does come off to me as like the wild, wild west right now.
Well, there's no question. I mean, it is the wild, wild west. Players are getting recruited out of their own locker room by other coaches. It's not right what's going on. If people really knew, it's just you shake your head. And we're all, at fault on this whole thing. And like you said, what is best? I think it needs to come back. What is best for the good of the game, the good of the kids, those type of things. In my opinion, still, like I'm not in it, so I try to look at this from objective landscape, an objective lens, and I get the coaches, maybe old school mentality. And if you have that, you should get out of coaching because you're not winning that battle. Like you need to adjust and adapt with the times. But I also don't think just wide open. Anytime kids are when it gets hard, they're out. They're going to transfer. Like I know that doesn't work. I think of all the teams that we had through Boise State and even at Washington. Us getting to the college football. I can't tell you how hard it was the first 2 years at Washington before the third year we went to the college football playoffs. And I know if you just carte blanche open up I don't know if anyone would even stay. They would not have gone through those hard things. And I go back in my career at Boise State where, we had a run there when Kellen Moore was the quarterback, at 50-3. Even for those guys where it's going good, we would have lost a lot of guys because it was just too hard. And I think you look back on it, and so many people were like, man, I'm glad I stayed. I'm so glad I stuck this out. I think this is one of the reasons that Washington is where they are today. Because when I stepped away, I know a lot of those kids were thinking, but the transfer portal was not wide open like it is. Then there's 2 years with, Jimmy Lake, and for whatever reason, it just didn't work. And then Kalen DeBoer comes in, and transfer portal starts to open up. And so many of those guys could have chose to move on. They don't know Kalen DeBoer and his staff. And so, there's a lot of people working to keep these kids in place and say, just give them a chance. Like, this is part of the growing process. This thing should get better for you. but you're going to have to trust some things and, go through some hard things.
Yeah.
I don't think Washington is where they are today without those kids going through those hard things.
I think it's very tough to build a program now, and it's going to be extremely tough for some of the smaller schools. But you do look at the last 2 years, and you never know how the first 2 years are going to go when you take over a program. But Sonny Dykes last year, who was a coaching veteran, right? He had multiple jobs, but year one gets TCU to the national championship game. And here we go with Kalen DeBoer, where he used to coach at Washington, where it's been 2 years, and they've only lost 2 games, and both of those games were by less than 8 points that they lost. So it is amazing, and it speaks to who DeBoer is as a coach, how quickly he was able to trust his players, Chris Peterson, but also his players were able to trust him.
Absolutely. And, this is a player's game. And credit to those players for believing, for trusting the message. That's a hard thing these days for these kids to trust messages, trust coaches, because there's just a lot of nonsense going on out there. And so the whole thing that they're growing up in with, NIL and making it all about some money and some of the money is for real, and that needs to be paid attention to. But I also think they're chasing, money that's not game-changing money, that it's like you're going down the wrong path for the wrong reasons. And so there's a lot of confusion going on out there right now. And it's awesome that they did believe the message, that they did stick it out to trust this man and his coaching staff. And there's no question about it. Kalen DeBoer is as good as anybody in the game today. And it's just amazing what he's done in such a short period of time.
And it's impossible to not feel just sensational for Michael Penix Jr. with all the injuries that he suffered at Indiana. For him to now finally get a good bill of health and play at this level, just what's kind of your view on the quarterback? Because he seems like he's a coach's dream.
I think it's kind of a shame that so many people really missed how good Michael Penix is all year. Now everybody saw the game and they're like, oh my gosh, how about this guy? And I think everybody that's been with him for the last 2 years has been saying that, oh my gosh, how about this quarterback? And, I think that, I'm not sure if he got his proper due in this whole thing. We try not to get hung up on external awards and all that because you don't control those things. But the fact that he's a second-team quarterback in the Pac-12, that he's the second runner-up in the Heisman, none of this makes sense to a lot of people that have been watching him and the work that he's put in and how he's elevated this team. It's second to none, and I think people are starting to see that right now.
Do you think he should have won the Heisman over Daniels at LSU?
Jaden Daniels is a spectacular quarterback, and those stats that he put up, oh my gosh. Most people can't do that stuff in practice. You can't do that on air. So I don't want to take anything away from that. I think the big question, Zach, is what really is the Heisman Trophy? What is it? Is it the truly the best player in the country? Well, how do you measure that? Is it the best player that elevates his team and they're playing on, for national championship type awards? And so, we're not playing the same schedules. When you weight the schedules in terms of out of season schedules and those type of things, non-conference schedules. So it's so subjective that it makes it really, really difficult to say, do you think he should have won or not? I just know that Washington is not where they are 1,000% without that quarterback that they have there.
Talking to Chris Peterson right now, the former coach at Washington and also Boise State. When you get to this matchup, I think the biggest talking point when I look at just on the field, not is this going to be Harbaugh's final game and the story behind both the teams, but on the field is going to be the Michigan run game because that could be the best defense for Michael Penix Jr. if you get Corum and Donovan Edwards, who's the strength of that Michigan team, going, and they could get on long drives and kind of bleed out that clock and keep Penix on the sideline.
Yeah, you're 100% right on that. And I don't think Washington has really seen a run game to this magnitude. I will say this, the University of Oregon can run the heck out of the ball. That was the most balanced offense I felt in the country all along. And they had a really spectacular run game. So it was super balanced. They throw it more than Michigan did. I'm talking about Oregon now. Mm-hmm. But they can run it. Now, I will say this, in the 2 times that Washington played Oregon, they neutralized that run game, especially the second time. They kept Oregon's offense on the sideline. And if Michigan can do that to Washington, that's going to be one of the keys to success, to keep Penix and company on the sideline. Because if you give them too many chances and they spend too much time on the field, you're not stopping these guys. You may slow them down a bit, and the best way to do that is to keep them on the sideline.
Well, it got hairy at the end of that game up against Texas. It looked like Washington was going to cruise to a victory, and then they almost choked that game away. How did you kind of process the final 3 minutes, Chris Peterson?
Yeah, it was crazy because I felt like you did too. It's like, yeah, they got this thing wrapped up. And then it was kind of this series of unfortunate events that all, it's like they took no time off the clock. And then
the injury timeout. I don't like that rule, by the way.
Yeah, I think everybody's kind of starting to open their eyes on that whole thing. So the offensive player gets hurt, the clock stops. That really had a huge effect. But it wasn't any one thing. It was a couple of things, and credit to Texas for battling back. But it did feel like that. It was kind of like an NFL game. You see these NFL games, and one team has control, and then late in the fourth quarter, you're like, this is a one-score game. These guys can go down the field and score if they do that. It seems like so many NFL games are like that when you get these evenly matched teams, and that's exactly what happened on Saturday night. And Washington's defense, which they've done all year long, they swell up and they make plays when plays need to be made. We always have this phrase that we've used forever, that stats are for losers. And that is the perfect example of that. Like if you compare stats, Michigan's defense versus Washington's defense, like the stats, they don't add up at all. And in so many ways, like if you just look at stats on teams, let's Washington teams, certainly on the defensive side, you're thinking, no. But yes, they just come through when plays they need to get in a turnover, they seem to get one. They need to get a stop, they seem to get it. If they have to slow down the run game, they seem to do that. And it's been phenomenal to watch all year long.
Coach, last thing I'll ask you, wrapping up with Chris Peterson, when you elected to walk away, I think it shocked a lot of people. And you know that if you wanted a job tomorrow, you could easily get one. There'd be a lot of schools that would be hitting you up to try to get you back on the sideline. Do you have any interest of returning to coach college football?
I don't at this time. I think if I did, I would have returned. What I do have interest in is the good of the game and really trying to help coaches navigate this changing landscape that's going on, and really how to stay healthy and at their best, because I don't think people realize how all-consuming this job is. It's really not even like pro football. Pro football, you have your season, and then you have your off season. You have your draft, and then you have your off season, and you're doing things, but on a normal pace, normal type hours, a 7 to 6 type job. In college football, you don't have that. It is 24/7, 365, from recruiting your own team to stay put, the next, round of recruits that starts in their freshman year all the way through their senior year. It's just so much constant chaos at all times, and it's very hard to stay sane in this job for the most part. You lose perspective so quickly in this job because I always say that arena will continually squeeze and restrict you from your best self. And unless you take steps to really build in healthy mechanisms in your life, it becomes a very, very difficult job. And so that's a little bit where my passion is now, Zach, is helping guys try to navigate that and figure that out.
Would you want to see it turn into one just 60, 65 team conference and you have divisions inside the conference and just have one commissioner of college football? Do you think that would be a good idea for the future of the sport to get everyone under one umbrella?
Yeah, I think Chip Kelly had been talking about that, separating maybe 65 and, 60 and 60 or whatever it is.
You'd be a good commissioner for it, by the way.
Pardon me?
You'd be a good commissioner for it.
Yeah, I think Chip might be a good commissioner for it. I think it's something like that. I mean, the thing is so, again, even with the collectives and NIL, nobody's playing by the same rules.
Yeah.
I think that's the one thing that everybody wants. It's what are we doing here? Let's all play by the same rules. So if we take 60 teams and we say it's going to cost this much money and everybody, is going to put in at least this much money, and you can't go over this much, and there's probably going to have to be collective bargaining with the players. And I don't think anyone has a problem with players making money at all. I think what everybody has a problem with, there's no guardrails, there's no guidelines, there's no what are we doing. Everybody's just making it up as they go, and there truly is not any governing body. I mean, they're not even paying attention to the stuff that's going on out there right now. They're not even paying attention to the NCAA. They're not even kind of worried about that. They're just going. And nobody likes it, but they don't know what to do. So I do think something needs to happen. I do think something in the next couple of years will probably happen where a group of teams or some leagues break away, and then there can be a fallback mechanism, and we can make some rules that make sense for everybody, and let's play by the same rules and get back to where everybody's feeling better about things.
Coach, really do appreciate the time today. Enjoy the national championship game on Monday night, and you be well, all right?
You got it. All right, Zach. Thanks for having me on. Have a great day.
You got it. Thanks so much. There he is, Chris Peterson, joining us on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Did a sensational job when he was coaching at Boise State, and also Washington, and the Huskies will play Michigan on Monday night in the national championship game. Let's get the latest CBS Sports Radio update with the Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
And it's sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save nearly $750 on average. Call or click today to find out if they can save you hundreds on your car insurance. With the top seed in the AFC sealed, Lamar Jackson gets the day off Sunday. Tyler Huntley starts for the Ravens, while the Chiefs can't move up anymore in the AFC, locked into the third seed. So Patrick Mahomes will have the season finale off. Blaine Gabbert starts at quarterback, while the Browns have no intention of ruining the Joe Flacco story before the playoffs. So he, too, will sit this weekend, and Jeff Driscoll starts for the Browns. Sam Darnold gets the nod over Brock Purdy for the 49ers. And the Cardinals will end the season without one of their tackles, DJ Humphrey, done with a torn ACL. The Western Conference has unveiled the league's most pleasant surprises thus far. They just happen to be the two top teams in the conference. The Timberwolves sit at 24-9 and look to get back on track after falling in New York Monday, and will host the Pelicans. The Thunder right behind them, a game and a half or a game back, and they're in Atlanta tonight looking for their sixth in a row. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Jim Rome is on CBS Sports Radio. Make it a must-listen-to part of your day. It all starts at high noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Zach Gelb Show is on the air across the nation on CBS Sports Radio.
This is just one of those years. If Buffalo just gets in, I think Buffalo is trending towards a playoff team, and not only trending towards a playoff team, but being a dominant team come playoff time. Everyone said they're done, they're over, and now they're starting to get life. Now they're starting to get the Undertaker kind of gift that resonates on social media. And they're popping back up from the casket, and they'll be in Las Vegas for the Super Bowl.
Here's Zach Gelb.
Alrighty, it's time to ask the pros. Where you, the listener, gets to ask us a question. Brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Simply tweet your question at CBS Sports Radio or at Zach Gelb using the hashtag #AskThePros. Be listening later in the show when we might answer your question. You can thank O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. O'Reilly Auto Parts. You can make the case that the Bills are still the second best team in the AFC. And you could also make the case that the Buffalo Bills won't even make the playoffs after this weekend. And I don't know what's going on with Miami Dolphins, right? Jalen Phillips is now out for the season. You have Bradley Chubb, who was left in that game, I guess you could say, for too long, and now he's out for the season. And I don't know if you saw this story today. I think everyone is okay. But Tyreek Hill, I was on actually on 560 WQAM with Channing Crowder and Mark Hochman down in Miami, and Hochman put up the video on Twitter. And Tyreek Hill's house was up in flames. Now, Tyreek Hill, I guess, was at the facility or on the practice field. And he then went to his house to make sure that everyone was okay. But that's just wild. And I think it was Marash who pointed this out on the overhead video, because when that happens, right, you have a chopper that goes there and they want to see the, all the news stuff. Tyreek Hill was in a walking boot as well. So I didn't know that Tyreek Hill was in a walking boot. I know he's been dealing with some injury problems, but he was in a walking boot in that video. So that's the farthest thing from his concern, least of his concern. I hope everything is okay, but it looks like everything is all right considering the circumstances with Tyreek Hill. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of theories how that house went up in flames. But I'm not going to speculate on that because I don't want to turn this out to be like an Aaron Rodgers, Pat McAfee, and Jimmy Kimmel situation. I do not want to get involved with lawsuits. I don't want to have to be like McAfee and then actually wear a button down to work and give like a prepared statement and all that other stuff. Did you see my least favorite owner in the NFL, David Tepper, got a punishment for throwing a drink on a fan? It was a $300,000 fine. Now, when I first read that, I'm like, oh, wow, $300,000 just for a drink. That's pretty expensive. Now, I think I'm going to try to be calm today about David Tepper. I ranted and raved yesterday and lost my mind and called him like a petulant pig or something like that. And I'm just really annoyed, if you can't tell, with David Tepper. But I'm trying to be a little calmer in 2024. I don't think it's going to actually work, but especially when we just talk about things in this job, and naturally you're just going to have me yell, and naturally you're going to have me just lose my mind. But when the guy is worth this, however many billions he's worth, it's just another slap on the wrist by the NFL to just give him a $300,000 fine. And also this statement that he released. He had all these days to come up with a statement. And all you could put together is, I'm deeply passionate about this team and regret my behavior on Sunday. I should have let NFL stadium security handle any issues that arose. I respect the NFL's code of conduct and accept the league's discipline for my behavior. You know what's funny about that, Samter? And this shows you just how much of an arrogant jerk David Tepper is and how he blames everyone when something doesn't go right but himself. Through all those words, did we even get, I'm sorry? Did we even get, I am wrong for throwing a drink on a fan? All you got was, I'm deeply passionate about this team and regret my behavior on Sunday. I should have let NFL stadium security handle any issue that arose. I respect the NFL's code of conduct and accept the league's discipline for my behavior. So I guess you could say he regrets it. So I guess that's good enough for a sorry. But that statement comes off to me as if he's still blaming the fan as to why he threw a drink on that fan. And still, when you are an NFL owner, I don't care what a fan says to you. I'm not saying fans can't say mean things to you and offensive things to you, but you are the multi-billionaire. You are the owner of the team on a road environment. You put on your big boy pants, you get up, and you walk away, and you act like an adult. And David Tepper wasn't able to do that. I actually have a punishment, because I think you would agree a $300,000 fine is kind of soft, where if that was us, we would be like, oh, we're screwed. But for David Tepper, what is that, like a penny to him? Maybe 5 cents, if at most. That's like chump change for him. I would do this. They have a home game this weekend. I am going to imagine that when you have a 2-win football team and you don't have your first-round pick and this fan base hates your guts, that's not going to be a highly attended game in Carolina for Tampa Bay and the Carolina Panthers. I would allow every fan in attendance to walk up to David Tepper for his punishment, and they get to throw a drink in his face. I believe that is the only suitable, punitive action for David Tepper's petulant arrogance and petulant decision that he made last weekend throwing a drink in a fan's face. $300,000 not going to do anything for him. This Fugazi apology that he didn't even write is not going to do anything. Those fans can't stand him. Let the fans throw a drink in your face for like 8,000 fans may be in attendance for this one? And that may even be benevolent. Or maybe we put Tepper in a dunk tank. I would go to that game. If we could throw a ball at a bullseye and get to dunk David Tepper, I would go there. I would pay for Boyle to go. I'd pay for Samter to go. And we would have a show trip if we got to either dunk David Tepper or throw a drink in his face. because that's how insufferable that guy is, and he's horrible for the NFL. And let's only give him a $300,000 fine and think he's actually going to learn from his wrong.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. 15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
All righty, what's happening? Hour number 2 of our radio program. That's right, it is the Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio. We have quarterback news in the NFL. According to Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network, Ravens coach John Harbaugh has announced that potential MVP Lamar Jackson will not play on Saturday versus the Steelers, as Tyler Huntley will start and Josh Johnson is the backup. Lamar Jackson's regular season is over, and it's on to the playoffs. And that is not an injury news. That is because the Ravens have already clinched everything. They're the number 1 seed. The AFC travels through Baltimore. As long as Baltimore just keeps on winning and they have a bye, they win the divisional round, then the AFC Championship game will be in Baltimore, as the Baltimore Ravens have a chance to then advance to the Super Bowl. And they have just been a dominant team this year. As the season did progress, people started to wake up and understand how great the Baltimore Ravens were. I think everyone started to realize 2-3 weeks ago, wow, they just obliterated the San Francisco 49ers, and then they followed it up obliterating the Miami Dolphins as well. And this is a huge year for the Ravens. This is as open as football has ever been. And in the NFC, it's clear the team to beat are the San Francisco 49ers. And in the AFC, the team to beat is the Baltimore Ravens. And really, I could ask this question about the AFC and the NFC. Like, let's go around the room and just do this as a quick exercise. Who is the second best team, in your opinion, in the AFC and the NFC? Like, if I had to say to you, this is the way we'll ask it. The Baltimore Ravens don't get to the Super Bowl, and the San Francisco 49ers don't get to the Super Bowl. Who do you then trust the most to get to the Super Bowl? Pat Boyle, your answer would be?
In the AFC, it's the Chiefs.
Okay.
In the NFC, because of what happened over the weekend, the fact that they're going to get at least 1, maybe 2 home games in the playoffs, it would have to be the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh, you're going with the drama Dallas choking Cowboys. All righty, so Boyle goes Chiefs, and Boyle goes with the drama Dallas choking Cowboys if the Ravens and 49ers can't get there. Moist Mike, I already know who you're going to go with in the AFC. It's going to be the team that matches the color shirt that you're wearing right now. That would be the Kansas City Chiefs. Who would your NFC team be?
And I'm not saying the Chiefs because I'm a Chiefs honk. I actually do think, like, as much as I want Tua to do well, and I love Mike McDaniel, I can't trust them in big games. The Bills, they're hot, but man, they've looked kind of shaky the past couple weeks. No one from the South really worries me. Same thing with the NFC North. I think it's just the Chiefs in the playoffs. If it's not the Ravens, I think you just really have to go with the Chiefs and Mahomes and just assume they'll figure something out. And then in the NFC, I want to say the Cowboys also, but I can't trust them either. Part of me wants to say I think Jalen Hurts and the Eagles will figure it out, but, you know, I'm just going to go with the Lions. If I really have faith in any team who hasn't really shown a lot of warts and they haven't, like, really had a prolonged period where they just have not played well, it's the Lions. They've had a few ups and downs, but for the most part, they've looked good against everyone that they've played for the most part, and at no point have you thought, man, this team is just not it. So I'm going to go Lions as the number 2 in the NFC.
Yeah, the big problem with the Lions is against their better competition, they have not played great. Like, they beat Kansas City week 1. I don't want to be like Mike Tirico, but that was without Travis Kelce. That was without Chris Jones, and they won the game by 1 point. They then lost to Seattle in a game that you thought they were going to win, and then Seattle had the Lockett touchdown in overtime. They lost to Baltimore 38-6. Now, Like, it's weird. Last week, I kind of look at it as a win, but it was a loss because the officiating, and I know, the Lions got too cute. They shouldn't have sent 3 offensive linemen there. The dumb official should be able to tell who's eligible and who's ineligible, and he messed up the entire play. So let me start with the NFC. I'm gonna hold my nose when I do this because I do not like picking this team. And this team, I have zero confidence in. I actually go with Boyle. It's the Cowboys. I have zero trust in the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles have a locker room problem right now. A.J. Brown, before the Cardinals game, took everyone to an escape room to build team chemistry. You got to build camaraderie in Week 17. And Nick Sirianni, I know he has a good record. He's not pressing the right buttons right now. So as someone who's usually pro-Philly on this show, I can't be all in on the Eagles. The NFC South, I think they could win a playoff game. Whoever ends up winning the NFC South isn't going on a Super Bowl run. You know what? I'm not going to go Dallas. I go with the LA Rams. You tell me that the San Francisco 49ers don't get to the Super Bowl? Screw Dallas. Why would I ever give Dallas the benefit of the doubt? They are the definition of a good team, not a great team. That Rams team has no pressure. That Rams team has no expectation. You have Matthew Stafford, who won a Super Bowl. You have Cooper Kupp, who not that long ago, Triple Crown in the NFL, Super Bowl MVP too. You have Aaron Donald, one of the more ferocious defensive players of all time. You have a running back in Williams, who is really coming on in the second half of the season. And then you have maybe the best name in the NFL, Puka Nacua. And Sean McVay. That Rams team, no one's talking about them. And I was going to say Dallas, but when I let it marinate a little bit more, the farthest I could see Dallas going this year is an NFC title game. Because they almost allowed, and I say this because I'm allowed to say this because I'm a larger man. They almost allowed a fat guy on an eligible play to catch a 2-point conversion that if the official just did his job, no one would be saying the Cowboys today. So I would say the Rams in the NFC and in the AFC, I don't trust anyone. I cannot get in on Kansas City. I just can't. I know it's Mahomes. I know it's Reed. But where my football fandom is, I know when you have 2 all-time greats, and I watched Belichick and Brady for 20 years, and it was few times that this happened, when you just don't have it. And they just don't have it this year. And when you don't have receivers that can simply catch the ball, there are problems. There's big problems. And Travis Kelce also looked like he has lost a step as well, and that defense hasn't been playing as great as they did before the start of the season. I would go with the Bills. And you know who I can't sleep on here? I would pick the Bills, but it's the Cleveland Browns. That Cleveland Browns defense is filthy. And on offense, you have a guy that for many years, when I was watching my team in the playoffs, Joe Flacco ever played up against the Patriots, I was shaking in my boots. I was. And that Browns team with Njoku and Amari Cooper, Jerome Ford, Kareem Hunt, that's a team that with that defense and Flacco plays the way that he's played the last 2-3 weeks, they could go on a run. But you tell me no San Francisco, no Baltimore in the Super Bowl. I would then go with Buffalo and the LA Rams. Those are the 2 teams that I would pick. Now, let me ask you this question. It is clear that in the AFC, the most pressure is on the Baltimore Ravens. When you think of the Baltimore Ravens, the first person you think of is Lamar Jackson. In the NFC, the most pressure, as we said, is on the San Francisco 49ers. Their coach, Kyle Shanahan, as good of a coach as he is, the way that a lot of people remember him is in the big game as an offensive coordinator against the Atlanta Falcons, as the OC of the Falcons, and then as the head coach of the 49ers in the Super Bowl where they lost to Kansas City. He was an offensive coordinator for a team that blew a 28-3 lead, and he was a head coach of a team that was up 10 points with 7.5 to play. I'll just simply ask you this question. Let me ask the Boyle. I'll go to Samter, and then I'll give you my answer. Who has more pressure on them this year? Is it Lamar Jackson to win a Super Bowl, or is it Kyle Shanahan to win a Super Bowl? Boyle, how do you answer it?
Lamar Jackson.
And why?
Because of the contract dispute over the offseason, where it seemed like it was more so collusion, rather than competition for the other owners, because nobody else wanted to give out a Deshaun Watson contract. That's what Lamar wanted. So,
which, by the way, is the funniest thing to me, is that NFL owners are ready to trade all those draft picks and give all that money to Deshaun Watson. But Lamar Jackson, I think something came out of the weekend. 2 teams were interested. One was the Raiders. I forget who the other one was that explored it, Carolina. But they didn't want to at least make an offer to then bring back to Baltimore, and Baltimore have to make the decision, do you take the 2 first-round picks or match whatever it was? But that's a topic for a different day, but continue.
Yeah, it's crazy that it was Deshaun Watson who got that precedent set for him rather than anybody else, save Lamar Jackson. But I would say it's Lamar. I think it's because of all the injury concerns he's had in the past in the postseason. It's now his 2nd MVP, so I think you put him in that tier now with Patrick Mahomes and any of the other greatest quarterbacks in the sport, Joe Burrow for sure. So now it's, okay, well, he hasn't delivered in the postseason yet. They've got the number 1 seed. Mm-hmm. He's healthy. The team, even with losing Mark Andrews, it's about as healthy as they've been in the last several years. What's the excuse this time if Lamar Jackson can't deliver? It's on his shoulders. He is clearly the best player in the sport this year. He is clearly the best player on the team. If he doesn't go, they don't go. So I think it's going to come down to, especially in a shaky AFC, what's the excuse if Lamar Jackson can't get it done? I think he's going to start feeling an immense amount of pressure here over the next couple weeks.
And it's also the right decision here. And I'm sure people will trash it if they come out sloppy or slow in the divisional round. Lamar has had an injury history. The last 2 years, he has not been on the field at the end of the season. So I have no problem with John Harbaugh saying, we're going to sit Lamar down, and we know that he is our team, and we go as Lamar goes. Samter, I'll ask you that same question. Who has more pressure, Lamar or Kyle Shanahan this year?
For the most part, I always lean to the player over the coach. I think Kyle Shanahan has done so much, and I don't think that we really knock him outside of what he did with the Falcons. I don't think we knock him all that much because every time he gets close, his quarterback gets hurt or something happens that kind of throws a wrench in his plan. So I feel like he keeps getting excuse after excuse after excuse. Finally, he has his franchise quarterback. So maybe he has this year that kind of prove it. But if they fall short, I still think people say, all right, the 49ers are where they are because of Shanahan. He will eventually get there. He just needs to, have that year. I think it's Lamar as well.
Okay, I'm actually Kyle Shanahan, so I guess I'm on an island with this one. And the reason why I'm
Which
Kyle
probably
Shanahan,
means whenever you're against me and Boyle, you're probably correct.
Oh yeah, no, you're definitely right on that. I thought you were going to go the other way and take the low-hanging fruit joke and just go, oh well, that means we're definitely right and that I was going to be wrong.
No,
so
no,
I
I'm wrong about
that.
everything. Literally everything that comes out of my mouth is incorrect. So therefore, whatever you're saying that's against me is positive.
That does tend to happen. Whatever producer they pair with me, that producer usually gets every prediction wrong. I don't know what it is.
I got Michigan. I almost got the score, and I was close with the Washington, Texas one.
Well,
so
that's what the producer does as well. Then they get one thing right, and they tell you about the one thing they got right, but not the other 99 things that they got wrong. But anyway, the reason why I go Shanahan is what happens if, let's just say, we get Ravens and Dolphins, a rematch. And that's the high-scoring game that we thought it was going to be, where it's a shootout. And it's 37-31. And let's say Tua just goes down the field late, finds Tyreek Hill in the end zone for a touchdown. Are we really going to be crushing Lamar? I get what you guys are saying, that if the offense doesn't play well, and Lamar makes a mistake like he did up against Buffalo and throws that 102-yard whatever pick six to Teron Johnson again, then we'll be getting on Lamar. But Kyle Shanahan, even though he's an offensive-minded coach, they have been so close, and he is in charge of the entire team. And Lamar, I believe the way that he's been talked about in the postseason has been a little bit unfair. And I think there's been a larger sample size as an OC and a head coach for Kyle Shanahan. Up until the Ravens played the 49ers, and I know that game went drastically in the favor of the Ravens. Everyone said the 49ers are the best roster in the league. On paper, they may not have the best team. The Ravens may be a better team, if that makes sense. But from 1 to 53 in terms of talent, the 49ers have the best roster in the league. And I know last year you could use the excuse of losing Purdy. In the Super Bowl, you could use the excuse of Jimmy G overthrowing, who was it, Emmanuel Sanders, I believe. But this is now another opportunity where you're expected to get to a Super Bowl and you're expected to win a Super Bowl. And I got to put that on Shanahan because in a big game, whether it was him being the OC or you even look at that fourth quarter up against the Rams a few years ago, or the Super Bowl where they're up 10 with 7.5 to play, his teams have not been able to get the job done. And in the Super Bowl, it wasn't only him, 28-3, because he only managed the offense, but he is the head coach. And I don't want to, it's weird to say that he's got to pass because he's so successful, but you now got to win one. You got to win one. Both guys got to win one. But since Shanahan controls the entire team, and he's right, him and John Lynch are the two CEOs of that franchise, I think there's more pressure on Shanahan than there is Lamar Jackson. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. Let me go to Adrian in Maryland next up on CBS Sports Radio. Adrian, what's happening?
Mr. Zach, Happy New Year. Hey, I got to get you guys to be biased. Look at here. When Dallas wins this week, they're going to have 2 home games. Earlier in the year, they blew the doors off the Los Angeles Rams, who you think is a better team than Dallas.
Well, it's a totally different Rams team than where they are now.
No, it's not. There's one guy, the running back. That's it. Cooper Kupp played, Makuka, whatever his name, played, and we knocked Stafford out. We knocked Stafford out the game. The last game, all you guys care about is this last 2 minutes. This last 2 minutes of the Lions game. See, now you got me all riled up.
Yeah, because you don't really have a point, Adrian. You know the Cowboys are chokers. They're going to get to the NFC title game, and you know they're going to lose. And if they don't get to the NFC title game this year, it's pathetic.
Zach, let me finish. If CD doesn't fumble in the end zone, that's a blowout probably. I guarantee you that because the Lions didn't do anything.
And if the referees know how to report someone correctly eligible, you lose to 68, a fat offensive lineman.
I just said that you guys basically watched the last 2 minutes of the game.
I watched the entire game. I had nothing to do that Saturday night. You think I'm a popular person? I sat on my couch. I parked my fat ass there. I ordered a few pizzas, and I watched the game.
Like I said, if CD goes in and scores unfumbling through the end zone, which is a stupid rule, which everybody thinks it should just come back either to the 20 or the spot of the fumble, like any other time, they blow them out.
How many excuses? Every time that something doesn't go the Cowboys' way, you guys have some excuse. Every time.
You just gave the excuse to
25 years. 25 years, Adrian. Come on.
Come on, Zach. Come on, Zach.
I'm giving you praise. You guys are a good team. You're just not a great team. You're going to go to the NFC title game, and you're going to lose.
There's actually no great team. There is no great team.
The Ravens aren't a great team?
A great team.
49ers? The 49ers who own you? The 49ers who are your father are not a great team? They're the Cowboys' daddy. Jerry Jones looks at the 49ers and he says, "Hello, Dad."
We will see this year. After we beat these two divisional games and play them, we're going to beat them in San Fran.
All righty, Adrian. I've been hearing from you cockroach Cowboys fans for way too long. You guys haven't been to an NFC title game since the 1995 season. All righty? And every year it's, oh, next year's our year. Or this year's going to be our year. Or we're going to do something more this year. Enough. Please, 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 please. Enough. Stop it. Fozzie Whitaker will join us next. Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
The Zach Gelb Show is on the air across the nation on CBS Sports Radio.
And Trevor Lawrence, who I still think could be a really great quarterback, when you get told for 3 years, and we all have to hear about you with what you did at Clemson, and how everyone needs to tank for Trevor, and you need to be this great quarterback, you got to play better. Now, year one, you got to pass. Year two, you played really well. But this year, this team isn't taking the step forward. Jacksonville Jaguars, I had high expectations for you.
Here's Zach Gelb.
Alrighty, this is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. We will get to Fozzie Whitaker in hopefully just a second, having some connection issues with him as the Texas Longhorns were in the Sugar Bowl, and it looked like they were not going to make it a game late in the fourth quarter. And then, as the game did play on out, you had 1.5 problems by Washington. The 3rd and goal decision to throw did not make sense to me. And then towards the end, with 50 seconds left, you had the injury timeout that ended up getting the ball back into Texas's hands sooner, and then Texas was moving that ball down the field. And when they're getting down to the 30, to the 20, inside to the 15, I'm thinking to myself, uh-oh, Texas is going to win this game, and they are going to snatch victory out of the jaws of defeat. But, as you know, the DB made a nice play on that fade to the back right of the end zone at the end of the game, and Washington advances to the national championship game that will come your way on Monday night. And we will be doing the show, by the way, in Houston for the national championship game. And then I'll be going to the game Monday night. I'll get on a plane early Tuesday morning and get back to our New York City studios coming up on Tuesday for the show to recap the national championship game on Tuesday evening. So hopefully we could connect with Fozzie Whitaker in just a bit. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. I want to get his thoughts about the future of Quinn Ewers and also how Texas is going to now deal with life in the SEC. And that's another thing with this national championship game. Even though right now Washington is a Pac-12 team, this is also a big test with Washington having this great team. If Washington is ready to compete with the powerhouse in the Big Ten right now, which is Michigan. But now joining us, Texas Longhorn great, also played in the NFL with a bunch of teams. His last stop was in Carolina, and that is Fozzie Whitaker, who is here with us, a part of the Longhorn Radio Network. Fozzie, appreciate the time as always. How you been?
I've been feeling really good, man. Brought in the new year in a fun way. What an exciting weekend of national semifinal games. Obviously, probably the best semifinals ever from a comparison of both games providing that last play, last drive type of momentum. But, man, I am feeling awesome bringing in 2024 the right way.
Well, we appreciate you jumping on board with us. So I was just saying right before we brought you in, it looked like Texas was going to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. What did you make of the last few play calls by Sark and the offense as Texas was moving that ball down the field or about to steal a victory away from Washington?
It was a surreal moment because everything leading up to that point, Washington had dominated the football game. It was at the line of scrimmage. Washington was holding their own offensively and defensively. Michael Penix Jr. was having his way with those defensive backs. The receivers were each having some big games and making some big-time plays. Washington forces 2 turnovers on the defensive side of the ball. Braylon Trice absolutely got after that Texas offensive line. And for Texas to still have a shot and be in that game late on that final drive, final possession, 0 timeouts, 4 chances with the ball on the 12-yard line, it kind of was just a crazy combination of a football game transpiring to that one final moment, which was that 4th down play with 1 second left on the clock. But ultimately, man, I tip my hat off to that Washington team. They faced scrutiny all year long, whether it was, oh, they haven't played nobody, oh, they are barely skating by, oh, they only win by a couple of points, oh, Oregon's going to blow them out in the Pac-12 championship game, oh, Texas is favored. This Washington team has answered every bell that has been thrown their way, and it was a truly amazing win for that team, that program, and what Michael Penix Jr. was able to put on display was probably his best passing clinic from a standpoint of start to finish that he probably has played all season long. So just an unbelievable game coming down to the wire. If Texas would have won, obviously I would have felt a little bit better. But ultimately, man, I was really proud as an alum of what those boys put out there on the field, the way that they played, never gave up, down by 13 points at one point in time late in that game. And for them to continue to scratch, claw, and fight for every moment, man, that's what you want to see. And so I was proud to be a Longhorn despite the loss, but it definitely was a season that can change the identity of what this program has been. This was the best season that Texas has had in the past 15 years.
So I know, Fozzie Whitaker, that you want to tip your cap to Washington, but just getting back to that play calling, there was nothing in the final 3-4 plays that you took issue with?
I took some issue. The real thing about it, though, I never really want to question a coach of Sark's kind of magnitude and his ability to call a play. I mean, at the end of the day, he got them in that position. He got them in that moment. He got them down there. I really would have loved to see Adonai Mitchell be able to get a couple more attempts down there. He only had that last one. That was a one-on-one opportunity. Speaking with Stark after the game in the press conference, he talked about kind of his play selection and how they were trying to get some isolation one-on-one opportunities with Jatavian Sanders and Jordan Whittington, and then obviously going to Adonai Mitchell at the end of the game. But I honestly would have loved to see A.D. Mitchell score that last touchdown, but I know Sark, and I know he had called up some great plans. Washington had a really good defense, and if Texas would have scored on that last play, nobody would have questioned the 3 plays prior because it still would have turned out okay. But ultimately, the way that Washington defended it, it kind of made it into a shoulda, coulda, woulda moment. But really, at the end of the day, those guys all believed in each other. They had that chance, considering how bad or poorly they had played up to that point with what difficulties Washington presented for them. And you just kind of got to accept it and hopefully grow from it and continue to get better. But definitely would have loved to see some more opportunities for A.D. Mitchell down there in the red zone.
Fozzie Whitaker here with us. So clearly Texas had an extremely successful season. Their quarterback, Quinn Ewers, even having to miss a little bit of time with the injury, had a great season. I would think he would want to come back, but then also there's part of me that's saying, wow, it does feel like it's time to go to Arch Manning. What do you think Quinn Ewers ultimately decides?
I think, honestly, the best thing for Quinn Ewers in this moment is to stay another year and progress underneath Steve Sarkisian, get another season underneath his belt, continue to build off of what he was able to build and put together in this past season, as he's had his best passing season so far. I mean, it's only his second year starting. So I believe he can really make some big strides. If he elects to go into the NFL draft, I mean, I'm going to still support him in every single way. But it is a loaded quarterback class that'll be coming out this year. So that can probably change the perspective of how he views his future, considering you got a lot of guys that are first-round, second-round talents or grades and probably will go and such. But ultimately, man, he'll probably have a sit-down with his family, probably have a sit-down with Coach Sark, A.J. Milwee as well, the quarterback's coach, and decide a plan of action that's best for his future. But I would believe if I was in that position, I would love for him to come back another season, strengthen up his arm, strengthen up his body, showcase to NFL scouts he can complete a full season, and then also put together a season that is going to be a memorable one in Texas's first year in the SEC.
So we know Malik Murphy is off to Duke. Arch Manning still clearly covered highly, and right, there's a lot of thoughts of what he could be as a quarterback. If Quinn comes back, I know they just won the Big 12 championship. They were just in the college football playoff. Is that definitely his job, or do you expect there to be a competition where maybe that could open the door for Arch Manning to usurp Quinn Ewers next year?
I expect there always to be competition. The first thing that Steve Sarkisian lamented whenever he first came in was how it's always going to be the best 11 guys on the field that will go out there and play. And if we come around in the spring and let's say Texas still has Quinn Ewers and they still have Arch Manning, and Quinn Ewers isn't ready to showcase, the things that he was able to put together late in this season, and Arch Manning seems to be hitting his stride, I wouldn't be surprised if Steve Sarkisian started going out there and then fall camp say, hey, we have a battle going on and it's going to go well in the camp, and possibly can name Arch as that starting quarterback. But ultimately, the way that Quinn Ewers went on a transformative offseason from last year to this year, where you saw him cut the mullet, you saw him cut the beard, kind of the all-business approach. He changed his diet. He locked in and honed in with the team. He became a leader for this offense and for this team. He showed the emotion. He showed the grit. He showed everything that you want to see from a QB1. I would believe he would continue to kind of double down on those efforts this offseason to hopefully maintain his position as QB1 in Texas, and hopefully create a run where they can be in a 12-team playoff format and possibly make it to the national championship as they were one game away this past season.
On the way out with Fozzie Whitaker, I got to ask you about your Carolina Panthers. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. I can't stand their owner in David Tepper, and we all just saw that video, Fozzie, of him on the road this week throwing a drink in an opposing team fan's face. I thought it was stupid. You got to be the adult there and just walk away regardless of what the fan is saying to you, especially when you're a multi-billionaire and you're the owner of the football team. They give him a $300,000 fine. To you and I, that's a lot of money. To David Tepper, that's like, what, 5 cents? How did you react when you saw all that did go down with the owner of the Carolina Panthers?
Yeah, I was truly amazed that that was all that it was, $300,000 fine. Like you mentioned, that's a large amount to the average person, but to a guy that's a billionaire that can buy out an NFL organization or a franchise, then, I mean, that's really more so a don't do that anymore, but that's about as much of a disciplinary action that the NFL took towards him. Anytime you see somebody in position of power or that is an owner of a team act in that manner, it kind of puts things in perspective about where that organization is going or where it has been. And over the past couple of seasons, obviously you can look at the track record of their wins and losses, the number of coaches that they've had, the number of players that have been rotated in and out of that system. And it doesn't seem like a very pleasant environment for one that's going to generate growth and positivity in this moment. And so it's unfortunate for a lot of the guys that are there. I mean, you look at Bryce Young, obviously he isn't performing to what a lot of people expected from him as the number 1 overall draft pick, and it doesn't help that C.J. Stroud is performing very well as the number 2 draft pick, but it makes it hard for him to be able to have success whenever you got an owner that's acting the way that he does and obviously brings attention towards himself in a negative light and for the organization. It's just not something that you want to see. So I was surprised it was only $300K. I'm not sure if there will be some other actions that the other owners or the NFL takes towards him, but that's not the attitude and that's not the representation that Carolina Panther organization wants to be remembered as or represented as. So I'm sure it'll get cleaned up quickly, and it was a moment that I'm sure David Tepper wishes he had back. But they got issues within that organization, and obviously it's starting from the owner's perspective, but they got to figure out some sort of consistency or continuity to try to get that program and that franchise headed back in the right direction.
And it's hostile right now. Like, this fan base, they cannot stand this guy, and I do not blame them. And I think the only suitable punishment, Fozzie Whitaker, would be all the fans, and I don't think there's going to be a lot of them that go to this game this weekend, a home game for the Panthers up against the Bucs to end this dreadful 2-win season. I would let them throw a drink in Tepper's face. That's what I would let all those fans throw a drink in his face and let him know how it feels.
I mean, if they could, I'm pretty sure a lot of those people would. I don't know if that'll still fix the issue, but at least they'll feel better about it.
Yeah, and the issue I think is simple as this, right? This is a guy that thinks he's a football guy, and he thinks he has all the answers, and he hires football people, but he doesn't let them make the football decisions because he thinks he's the football guy. That's how I would kind of just really sum this up real quickly.
That's what is playing out. Obviously, you bring in guys in the coaching staff that was comprised this past offseason. That coaching staff is supposed to work. And you're supposed to have some sort of success, better than a 2-win season in the way that they've been able to play this year. They look awful this year and have no sense of direction. Like, you don't know where the future of this program is going because of the turmoil that you talked about and the amount of experience that they had that was just fired, all the guys that were let go. It's disappointing. I've played underneath several of those guys on that coaching staff, and I know what those men are as coaches, and I know what they are as men and their core values and the type of culture that they like to bring, and to see the way that it kind of crumbled the way that it did. It's a serious issue at hand, and that's something that you never want to see for a program or organization with good men like that. Considering also you bring in Bryce Young, and he's taking a lot of heat as your rookie quarterback. So a drink in the face may help with emotions and feelings, but they're going to need some surgical processes that got to take place in order for this program to get back in a place where it was whenever we played for a Super Bowl back in 2015.
Fozzie Whitaker, always great to catch up. Happy New Year. Thanks so much for doing this.
Absolutely. Happy New Year's to you too, brother, man. Have a good one.
You got it. There he is, Fozzie Whitaker, joining us on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. We will take a timeout. We'll come on back with Take 5 Wednesday. Update time first. Here is the Act Man, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
Well, the final weekend of the season won't feature a lot of starting quarterbacks. Among those, the top-seeded Ravens giving Lamar Jackson the day off Saturday, with Tyler Huntley getting the nod, and Patrick Mahomes takes a seat for the season finale with the Chiefs locked into the 3 seed. He will not play, so Blaine Gabbert starts for the Chiefs. Jeff Driscoll getting the start for the Browns, with P.J. Walker backing him up. And 2 of the NFC West better quarterbacks won't see any action as Matthew Stafford sits. Carson Wentz gets another chance. The 49ers won't play Brock Purdy, so Sam Darnold will start for them. The Cardinals have had a rough season. It'll end without offensive tackle DJ Humphries, who suffered a torn ACL and will miss the season finale. He hopes to be ready for the start of next year. The Timberwolves have the best record in the West, but started 2024 with a loss in New York. They're back home tonight to host the Pelicans, looking for a bounce back. The Pelicans coming off a win last night over the Brooklyn Nets. The Knicks, after beating Minnesota, will host the Bulls. Were pummeled in Philly last night, while the Bucks trailed the Celtics by 2 games in the East and go for their 25th win against the Pacers in Indiana. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Hey, it's Amy Lawrence. Be sure to listen to CBS Sports Radio at home. Just ask Alexa to play CBS Sports Radio.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
As the dust settles from last week's games, it's time to look at which teams are rising and which are falling.
And there's an interception.
Zach ranks his top 5 NFL teams on this week's edition of Take 5, only on the Zach Gelb Show.
Now, just a disclaimer. The top 5 teams that I'm going to give you right now is a different conversation than the one that we had about 40 minutes ago on who the teams you trust the most to get to the Super Bowl if you take out the 49ers and the Ravens. These power rankings are who are the best 5 teams following last week moving into this week. So, in at number 5, here we go, Brownies, here we go. Hoo, hoo. Defensive Player of the Year potentially, Myles Garrett, stud. No Amari Cooper, no problem. You got David Njoku. And elite Joe Flacco is back. And Kevin Stefanski's about to win his second Coach of the Year award. So, the Cleveland Browns at number 5. 4, I never felt like a team won a game where they lost a game, and I'm still going to give them praise. But the Detroit Lions got screwed by the officials. So, in a week where it's really like, let's do 1 and 2, and then it's like, oh, you could put anyone 3, 4, and 5. I will still praise the Lions, even though they lost, and I usually don't reward losers. But they have had a heck of a season. Dan Campbell fears no one. I do not fault him for going for 2 at the 2. Then when it gets pushed back to the 7, you get Parsons to jump offside. And then if Jared Goff just throws a better ball, that's a 2-point conversion. But none of that other stuff should happen because the first play should have counted, but Brad Allen or whatever his name is just messed it up. In at number 3, Adrian, this is for you. My guy Adrian that called this earlier. I am putting the Dallas Cowboys in there at 3. It's not because the Cowboys are great. It's because the Cowboys are good, and everyone else is like, besides the teams that are 2-1. In at number 2, the San Francisco 49ers. And you don't really need much of an explanation right there. Outside of their performance up against the Baltimore Ravens, we all know how dominant of a team that is. And in at the number 1 spot are the Baltimore Ravens, who are on fire. John Harbaugh, to his team after the game, he said that was the best performance he's seen from an individual team that he's coached. with what they did up against the Dolphins. So in back-to-back weeks, they obliterated the 49ers in Santa Clara, and they follow it up obliterating the Miami Dolphins with that game being in Baltimore. And it looked like that was going to be an awesome game from the start. Like the Ravens-49ers game, it was sloppy. The Ravens-Dolphins game was high-scoring, good from the start. I thought that was going to be a shootout. Like I thought we were trending at 37-31 in that game, and then Baltimore just said, yeah, we're not going to really make this a game. So in at number 5, the Browns, 4, the Detroit Lions, 3, the Dallas Cowboys, 2, the San Francisco 49ers, and the Ravens in at number 1. Michael Samter, speak now, forever hold your peace.
How about the Miami Dolphins?
Yeah, getting blown out by the Ravens is a problem. The Dolphins, outside of the Cowboy game, have not played well in big games this year. And that defense now concerns me because it was one thing to lose Jalen Phillips, who I thought needed to be what Hassan Reddick was to the Eagles last year for the Dolphins this year. But now you're without Bradley Chubb, and Jalen Waddle's out for the rest of the regular season. So one more game. But let's see what he's like when he comes back. I just don't trust that Dolphins defense. We know they'll be able to put up points and score in the playoffs on offense. But defensively, they were just starting to move in the right direction, recovering from the loss of Phillips. And now you've lost Bradley Chubb. That's just too many guys that you're going down with.
My Kansas City Chiefs.
You got Mahomes. You got Andy Reid. Should I be like Skip Bayless right now? I'm sure he's probably had this take. Is Travis Kelce spending too much time with Taylor Swift? I don't trust anyone. Outside of Mahomes, who's had problems this year, I just don't trust that team. That the wide receivers are terrible. Isaiah Pacheco being hurt or not 100% healthy is a problem because outside of Kelce and Mahomes, he's their next best offensive player. I know Rashee Rice is playing okay, but they're going to have to, in all likelihood, they'll get a home playoff game for winning the AFC West. But then after that, assuming they get through that, they're going to have to go on the road. Now, we know Mahomes, he has never won a road playoff game. He's never had a road playoff game. Like, he could do it. But I just don't trust that team to put 3 games together to get to a Super Bowl this year. I think there's too many warts with this team on offense, and on defense, we thought they were good, and now I think they've come back down to earth a little bit. The fact that they had to sweat it out up against the Bengals, who are without Joe Burrow, and Jamar Chase was come back from injury, I didn't like that performance by Kansas City.
I know they're on a free fall, but the Eagles.
Well, you just said it.
The Eagles.
Yeah. I have never soured on a team that I had so much respect and thought they had a good chance to get back to the Super Bowl. And I was defending them when they started out 10-1 and they weren't playing great. You lose that game to Arizona. Like, I had Arizona covering the 12 points. I did not think they were going to win the game outright. When you have team chemistry bonding moments in the escape room this late in the season, week 16, 17, and the coach is losing his magic touch, there's too much negativity around the Eagles right now, and there's a lot of smoke. And when there's smoke, there's a fire, and there's a fire burning in the Eagles locker room. This Eagles team, it's a team chemistry issue.
And how about them Bills?
I still think the Bills get to the Super Bowl. I don't love how they played the last 2 weeks, but they won those games against 2 bad teams. This is a big week for the Bills. You win the AFC East, and you'll probably be the 2 seed. You lose, there's a chance you're on the outside looking in. So just because that chance is out there that they may not get into the playoffs, I have to keep them outside of the 5. But if they get into the playoffs, sign me up. Ravens, Bills. Would love to see that in an AFC championship game if we could get there, because depending on the seeding, you may have to actually see that in divisional round. Which, could you imagine Buffalo walking into Lamar's house? AFC divisional round? And then the takes that would happen if the Ravens offense is a little sloppy when they're resting Lamar this weekend. It's really a lose-lose for John Harbaugh, but I think he's making the right decision not playing Lamar Jackson this weekend. So my 5 as we enter week 18, Ravens 1, 49ers 2, Cowboys 3, Lions 4, and the Browns 5. I feel good about 1 and 2. Everybody else,
You're in a 5-minute break. 4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. here's your host, Zach Gelb.
All righty, hour number 3 of our radio program. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. I did not have this on my bingo card when the new year did start and when this week did commence, that we would be talking about the law firm of Kimmel, McAfee, and Rogers. But here we are, stemming from one of his weekly chats from earlier in the week. Aaron Rodgers was on the Pat McAfee show, and I was actually watching this live. And Aaron Rodgers accused Jimmy Kimmel of being on the Jeffrey Epstein list. And then Pat McAfee had to respond to it today. And last night I'm at the Rangers game as the Carolina Hurricanes just destroyed my hockey team. Looked like the Rangers were a little bit hungover from the start of the new year. And I'm sitting there at the game, and I'm with my best friend who's a Jet fan. And I think this tweet came out 30 minutes before the game started, but we were in line getting food. They have a great grilled chicken teriyaki bowl at Madison Square Garden with some white rice, and they have a bunch of veggies in it. You wouldn't expect that's the food I'm getting at a hockey game. But when you ate what I ate on New Year's Day at the place I was at, friend's house, with the food and the spread that they had for the Michigan-Alabama game, it's like, all righty, it's January 2nd. We just had a gluttonous last few days, a lot of drinking, a lot of eating with New Year's. You have to eat somewhat healthy. And when you go to a sporting event, there's not a lot of healthy options. So I knew this grilled chicken teriyaki bowl with rice that I was like, okay, that's where I'm going to go because it's the healthiest of the options at Madison Square Garden. So we go, we eat that, we get to our seats, puck's about to drop, and I open up Twitter. And now when you open up Twitter, I've called Twitter a cesspool before it was cool to call Twitter a cesspool. But now in this new era of Twitter or X, there's so many times. I used to be on Twitter, and I would only see tweets that people would send to me or people that I would follow. Now, anytime someone tweets something, whether I follow you or not, or if you get picked up on the algorithm. So I see this Kimmel tweet, and then my entire timeline from last night into today are all these people talking about this Epstein list and accusing people of being on it. And this is so not up my alley, this conversation, because it's all rooted in politics at the end of the day, and I don't get very political. And there's all these conspiracy theories out there. And even my buddy said to me at the game last night, he's like, you are not a conspiracy theory. He's like, you don't really, I'm good for a good sports theory. When you end up talking about pedophiles and who's on a list and who's not, and then all the political takes on it, it makes me projectile vomit. So let's play the audio. Let's then play McAfee from today, and then we'll react to the entire thing where Aaron Rodgers, say what you want about him. And there's some years I like Aaron Rodgers. There's some years I don't like Aaron Rodgers. How he has maintained being a storyline throughout this entire season, it's actually surreal. And you never know what he's going to say. And obviously, McAfee's paying him money. And, there's people. When that article came out from Andrew Marchand, is one of the best media insiders in the business. When Andrew Marchand releases that article that it's $1 million or something that McAfee is paying Rodgers, everyone's like, oh, I can't believe that. Well, when you listen to this show, we have never paid a guest to be on this show. We don't have weekly deals.
You don't even pay me to produce the show.
Oh, I don't. Someone at management does with Odyssey. All righty? I definitely do not pay you. All right? And it's not that I wouldn't want to pay you. It's not my job to pay you. They hire me to do the show. They say, here's your salary, here's your contract, you do the show. We'll tell you who's producing. We'll tell you who's being the board up. That's another thing. When I got this new show, I love Ryan Hickey. I love Ryan Hickey like a brother. But people are like, how dare you not bring Ryan Hickey to the news show? Oh, you're a jerk, Gelb. It's not my decision. I don't get to make the decisions on who's going to produce, who's going to be the board op, and that's not me saying one way or another. But sometimes, like in this business, people give the hosts way too much credit and way too much power. Here's breaking news. I'm not Mike Francesa. I'm not Christopher Mad Dog Russo. I'm not Pat McAfee. I make a good living. I love my job. They sometimes ask me about things on how to make the show better, but they don't consult me to do this show as much as you think in the listening audience. So let's make that clear. But I don't even know how we got down this roll. Samter made a joke, and this is what Samter does. I'll give Samter this credit. Samter makes a joke, and I'm not even saying the joke always annoys me, but the joke gets me off on this tangent and just makes me go nuts. But to get back to what Marchand said, when you have a weekly spot, yeah, of course the guest is getting paid. Like those traditional radio interviews, like if you go on Sports Radio 94 WIP, they have Jason Kelsey every week. They have Brandon Graham every week. It's either because the deal they have because they're the radio rights holder for the Philadelphia Eagles, or they pay the guest every week because they could go sell it. Now, we get a lot of great guests. We get some of the biggest guests in the country. And that's because of relationships that I have and that Samter has. But, like, we'll get Kalen DeBoer on, 2-3 times a year he came on with us? Because I know Kalen DeBoer. That's just like one example. But if I said to Kalen DeBoer, come on every week, he would say, how much are you guys paying me? Because then that turns out to be a job. Like when Joe Girardi was a manager in New York, and he would go on with WFAN in the afternoon. He's getting money. So it's amazing to me how much people think they know, but how little they know, where there was so much reaction to Aaron Rodgers getting paid. And that's got to be the most lucrative guest spot of all time because it's usually not that expensive. And the radio station is usually able to make money off those appearances through sponsorships. So, Rodgers, though, all throughout the year, got hurt 4 plays into the season. Because of his friendship with A.J. Hawk and his new friendship with Pat McAfee, and also that they pay him $1 million, whatever it is, Rodgers goes on every week. And here's the thing. McAfee, who does a great show, and I know Pat a little bit, and I'm a Pat McAfee fan. I do think Pat McAfee is good for our business. But there's sometimes people get behind a microphone and, right, they go, where is his journalistic integrity? I've said this for years. I don't view myself as a journalist. I view myself as a talk show host and an entertainer. Now, I'm not going to say things that I don't believe, or I'm not going to say things that I don't know. But McAfee is a former athlete, and there's a lot of former athletes that are good at this, and there's a lot of former athletes that are bad at this. McAfee is great at this. And if you don't believe me, go look at his contract. You don't make $30 million or whatever he makes a year if you don't have talent. He is like what Howard Stern was to traditional radio at the time. That is what McAfee does now in the year of 2023, 2024. And with cancel culture and all that stuff, you got to kind of reel it in a little bit more. But McAfee is not going to be the one that presses Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers, though, talks about a lot of things where sometimes he is informed and sometimes he is ill-informed. Sometimes he's right, sometimes he's wrong, but he always presents it as if he's 100% right, and if you disagree with him, you're an idiot, you're a moron, and you're a dope. So, little did I know, Rodgers and Jimmy Kimmel have now had a feud, I think dating back a feud like several years. Like, I saw some tweet today, and I don't know what's true or not on Twitter, what's AA or not anymore on Twitter, where they've been going like kind of back and forth since 2019, 2020. And remember, Kimmel is on ABC. McAfee is on ESPN, owned by the same people. So you have one of the biggest stars in McAfee, one of the bigger stars in Kimmel, and because of content on McAfee's show from Rodgers, I see this tweet at the Ranger game last night where Kimmel is fighting with McAfee, and more so Rodgers, where Kimmel goes, "Dear," a word I can't say on the radio. McAfee can, but I can't. "For the record, I've not met, flown, visited, or had any contact whatsoever with Epstein, nor will you find my name on any list other than the clearly phony nonsense that soft-brained wackos like yourself can't seem to distinguish from reality. Your reckless words put my family in danger. Keep it up, and we will debate the facts further in court," and tags Aaron Rodgers. So, without further ado, here was the short audio clip, we condensed it a little bit, of Aaron Rodgers on the Pat McAfee show accusing Kimmel of being on the Jeffrey Epstein list.
A lot of people, including Jimmy Kimmel, are really hoping that doesn't happen.
All right.
Hey, I'll tell you what, if that list comes out, I definitely will be popping some sort of bottle.
Now, we all know what the assumption is if you are on the Epstein list. The assumption is you are either a pedophile or you knew about what was going on and you were enabling it because of the relationship with Epstein. So I understand why Kimmel is annoyed. You know, my dad, he used to work for Don Imus. And back then it was different radio. Don Imus would say some of the most cruel things about human beings possible. Like attack their appearance, their character, their religion. Don Imus once called my dad a pedophile. And my dad walked into Imus's office. They had a good relationship because my dad did the sales for the show. And he was like, "Don, you could call me this name, that name, this name, that name. I can't say what those names were on the radio. But one thing you could never call me is a pedophile. Because that's like the worst thing you could call someone. Or just associate it with those heinous, disgusting acts." So I understand why Kimmel is annoyed. And with everything in pertaining to this list, and, you know, does it exist, and what's going to come out, and all that stuff, I don't think Jimmy Kimmel is saying these things unless he knows he didn't do anything wrong and then threatening a litigious situation, whether he's going to win or not. So this blows up. Let's see this Kimmel video. Oh, my God, his post. How many views do you think? Kimmel's response to seeing this video of Aaron Rodgers saying he will pop some sort of bottle when the Epstein Associates list is released and suggests Jimmy Kimmel will be named on it. Kimmel's response, how many views do you think this is drawn up on the good old cesspool of Twitter?
200 million.
Samter?
50 million.
$75.8 million. 75.8 million views. Holy smokes.
It hits everything. It's comedy, it's sports, it's politics, it's left wing, it's right wing, it hits every single person on the planet or in the country would be interested in this.
Yeah, like besides me.
Yeah, you're the only one. No, but it interests you because it's sports. It has a sports angle to it. So there's so many. Everybody has an interest in this.
I'll peel back the curtain a little bit. Sanders, first thing he said to me today was, "When are we talking Kimmel and Rodgers?" No hello. No, how are you doing? How was last night? How was earlier this morning? How are you? When are we talking Rodgers and Kimmel? And I was like, we have to talk about this? Because no matter what I say, and I kind of learned this, when I was working at a Philadelphia radio station, 97.5 The Fanatic. That was right when the Trump Kaepernick issue was a big one. And I thought I gave 15 of the best minutes of radio like I've ever done. The first call I take, some guy says to me, "Oh, you hate the cops. You hate the military." And I'm like, what? I have an NYPD sticker at the time when I had a car. Now I live in the city. I don't have a car. On my car. My grandfathers served, but I hate the military and I hate the cops. When you have topics like this, like Samter said, that is really marinated and deriving from politics, and you have all these accusations, It doesn't matter what someone says on a radio show or a television show because people already have their opinions. And rarely are people going to listen and they'll hear what you say, then they'll call you up and they'll tell you you're right or wrong, even if you may have not have agreed or disagreed with anything here. And that's what you can't have a sensible conversation about this. You just can't because people aren't willing to listen. And that's a big problem in our society. You could disagree, but people aren't willing to listen. It's always a big fight. That's what it is over and over again. But here is McAfee today, and I did find this funny. I don't know if ESPN is telling McAfee that he has to start wearing shirts, but recently, he always wears the tank top, and he's jacked, by the way, McAfee. But he's now, the last few days, I see him wearing T-shirts. More and more. So I wonder if ESPN was like, lose the tank top a little bit. But today, he was wearing a button-down because he knew he was going to give up this button-up statement. Here is Pat McAfee on the whole Rodgers and Kimmel feud to start his show today. This is the Pat McAfee Show.
There could be some things that were certainly probably, we're going to have to hear from Aaron on that, meant to be talk joke that can then become something that is obviously a very serious allegation that then leads to a massive overnight story. But I can see exactly why Jimmy Kimmel felt the way he felt, especially with his position. But I think Aaron was just trying to talk. Now, did it go too far? And a lot of people, Jimmy Kimmel certainly said that was the case. We and I immediately upon it happening, trying to be like, some things obviously people get very pissed off about, especially when they're that serious allegations. So we apologize for being a part of it. Can't wait to hear what Aaron has to say about it. Hopefully those two will just be able to settle this.
I like Pat McAfee. Pat McAfee should get out of media. And Pat McAfee should get out of media and he should run for the president of the United States. That was the most political response, politician-like response I've ever heard. McAfee is tremendous at what he does. McAfee is trying to bring a locker room, how he knows it, and all the different conversations, he even said this today in the locker room, to the radio. McAfee doesn't have a traditional crew. That's what makes his show so good. But when you get a serious issue like this, and he knows he's right in the middle of it, and he has a relationship with Rodgers, but then there's also the Disney relationship as well, you're basically playing a giant game of ping pong, where it's back and forth, and you're just trying to make sure that pinball, I should have said, where that ball's just staying, and it's not going right down the drain. Because he's going from pro Rodgers to pro Kimmel. I understand both sides. It was usually what you would hear for a politician kind of running for office trying to appease all. But in this case, you can't appease all. So it's weird because the Jets have no power here. If this was 20 years ago, the Jets would tell McAfee, stop doing this. They would tell Rodgers to stop doing this. But Rodgers runs that organization. And he's friends with McAfee. He's friends with A.J. Hawk, former teammates. He's going to keep on doing this. But it's just uncomfortable. And even though McAfee tried to play it off like it was in jest, that's not something you really joke about. And also, I don't think Aaron Rodgers was joking. Rodgers is petty. Rodgers hates Kimmel. And he thinks Kimmel's on this list when you're going to the extent of you will pop a champagne bottle when that list comes out. So this is just a giant cluster. And with the Disney connection, do they take a side? Do they go Kimmel over McAfee, McAfee over Kimmel? Or do they just do what sometimes smart companies do? This is a news cycle. There will be something else that pops up a day or two from now. This story will go away. But as a talk show host, how do you have this happen? And next time Rodgers comes on, I don't think Rodgers came on today because he was on the other day. How do you not ask Rodgers about this? But then once again, McAfee, as great as he is, he's not your traditional talk show host. So sometimes you have a big thing that goes on like this, everyone reacts to it, and eventually it will fade out of the news cycle. But it is wild how the quarterback of the Jets has not played a full game at all this year, but he's a talking point every week from something that he says on the Pat McAfee Show. And it shows you why McAfee pays Rodgers that money, whether you like the content or not that you hear from Aaron Rodgers. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. We'll take a timeout. Come on back.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
All righty, Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio News Brief time. Let's start with the head football coach of the Tennessee Titans, and that is Mike Vrabel. He had a little kerfuffle with the reporter about Tennessee's bad record.
Because it sucks to lose, Gentry.
Trey, ever need to show you anything?
Did you have another thought, or no? I'm just curious. It sucks. Losing, awful. That's why I want to win. Because you don't sleep. You want to win for the players that bust their tail. I think that's it.
So is there more to look into here with Vrabel? I know Lombardi, because Lombardi, he botched everything when he was a GM, and now I guess he botches everything as a media member. Mike Lombardi I'm talking about. Where the other day he was saying that Vrabel's actually, his contract's done at the end of the year, but then he had 2 years left on the deal, and he claimed he misspoke. But there was still rooted in that Lombardi response, him having issues with the new GM, Rand Carthon, as well. Is that Vrabel being annoyed with the team losing, or is there maybe something brewing there? Because last year they started, 7-3, then didn't win a game down the stretch. The quarterback got hurt. And this year, they just don't have a good team. And that was a team that they had a window. No one ever thought they were actually going to win a Super Bowl, but they were consistently in the playoffs, and they were consistently a tough team. And then it bottomed out real quickly. So, Boyle, let me ask you this. You think that is more so Vrabel just being frustrated about the losing, or is there more behind the scenes that we don't really know about?
No, I think he's frustrated about the losing, but I also think that if the New England Patriots this offseason offer him the head coaching job, he would jump at it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, they have to give a draft pick, and I'm all in. Give me Mike Vrabel as the next head coach of the New England Patriots. And can I just give a quick little disclaimer here? There are a lot of you the last 2 years that have enjoyed to see Bill Belichick just fail. And this could be the last game Bill Belichick coaches up against the Jets, where the Jets haven't beat the Patriots since 2015. Please, Jets, finally get it done. Because I want the Jets to win so the Patriots get the better draft pick. Why are you shaking your head, Santa? You're no longer a Jet fan. You shouldn't care about the Jets. Fugazi.
No. I still hate the Patriots and Belichick, and I want the Patriots to get the worst draft pick possible.
Okay. I'm still on to you.
There's not a chance in hell the Jets win this game this weekend.
You're probably right. They're starting who? Trevor Siemian?
Doesn't matter. Trevor Siemian, Brett Rippon.
Tim Boyle?
Timmy Boyle, my cousin.
Yeah.
Patty Boyle.
No one gets more play off Tim Boyle than Pat Boyle.
Why wouldn't I?
My favorite is when a talk show host down the hall, BT, everyone knows BT here on CBS Sports Radio. He was a host here for 10 years, almost. He once tweeted out something about Pat Boyle, and he meant Tim Boyle. Like, you're on the minds of a lot of people.
He was talking about the quarterbacks, and he goes, by the way, Pat Boyle is well-respected in the locker room.
Yeah. Not the locker room here.
All right, come on, take it easy. I just filled in for you for 8 hours on Sunday. I'd say I have some respect.
Oh, yeah, thank you. You did a good job. I tuned in for a little bit. But everyone is crushing Belichick the last 2 years. And I understand why. He was a pain in your you-know-what for 20-something years. The 24 years he's been the coach of the Patriots. He had 2-3 bad years, that's fine. Let's throw a little respect on Bill Belichick's name. All righty, folks? If this is it, you guys, about every other NFL fan base, would want to have 20% of the success that Belichick had. So let's pipe down on some of the over-the-top criticism and revisionist history that all of a sudden this guy can't coach. Yeah, losing Brady was big. Don't get me wrong. Losing Brady was enormous. I've always said Brady's more important than Belichick, but it wasn't like Belichick was some bum. And there were some years where they won more because of Belichick, and there was other years they won more because of Tom Brady. Let's go to Dan Campbell on the NFL saying the Lions were being deceptive with our pal Stoney and Jansen on 97 won the ticket.
The defense disguise coverage.
Right.
Disguise
Right, I know.
Isn't that deception?
Yes,
What the
exactly.
hell?
That's my point.
All you're trying to do is you're going to hope somebody's going to fall asleep on the defense. You're not worried about the officials because you've already explained it. It's the defense you're trying to confuse. They're going to know what it is, because the number's going to be called out over the PA. Mm-hmm. And so you're just hoping somebody on defense falls asleep. They see Skipper run out, and they're like, oh, it's the jumbo tight end again, and they don't realize that 68 is the one who is reported eligible. If they're on their stuff, then it's not going to matter anyway unless it gets called wrong.
He's 100% right. And that's why when people are trying to say, oh, the lines are being too deceptive, that was some of the biggest bull crap I've ever heard. Because sometimes, even when they make the announcement, people see something with their eyes and they see 3 linemen going over, and then they think some trick play is happening where if they just open up their ears a little bit, you would know that the person you're concerned about is ineligible. The refs messed it up. Let's stop blaming the Lions. This was on Brad Allen and his just terrible job that he did as an official in that one. Here is Jonathan Gannon. Is Kyler Murray definitely his quarterback next year? This courtesy of the Burns and Gambo Show on Arizona Sports.
Is there any doubt in your mind who your quarterback is going to be for next season?
No, there's not.
He's your guy.
I love this guy,
why are you laughing?
I love this guy. No, there's no doubt.
You love which guy?
Number one, our franchise quarterback. Yeah. That's who I love. Being here for a year with him now, I'm more convicted than when I got here. I'm just, I've been very pleased with him.
Yeah, I remember when they also said that Josh Rosen was definitely the guy and then he wasn't the guy. But I do believe them in this case. I do think Kyler Murray's definitely back next year and starting as he should be for the Arizona Cardinals. Here is John Harbaugh talking to his team post-game, and he was so fired up, he was even bleeding a little bit in the post-game speech to his team after the Ravens just killed the Miami Dolphins.
I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. I'm bleeding. I'm so proud of you. Put it on the forehead right there. Yeah! That's who it is! That's you, man!
That team just has great team chemistry right now. They really do. And I don't even think they're the most talented team in the NFL, but they're playing like they're the best team in the NFL right now. Let's go to Joe Flacco. He had a little funny comment about his age.
Guys look at you a little bit differently just because of the fact that I've played. This is the 16th year that I've been in this league. And you can tell that guys look at you a little bit differently just because of that. I mean, I'm dealing with, I always say it. If I messed up in high school, I could be these kids' dads. It's like...
Have a little bam chicka wham time a little bit too early. Didn't know when to pull out. Didn't know when to wrap it up. Could be some of these kids' fathers. Ack just looked at me. He was like, man, you could not say that 20 years ago on the radio, but now we can, I guess. I'm not McAfee, though. I'm not dropping curse bombs left and right here. Let's go finally to Paul Feinbaum, who, I'm on to Paul Feinbaum. I called him Paul Feinbaum a few times this year, but I was watching him on ESPN the other day, and there was no one that flip-flopped more about this Michigan thing than him. At first, he was like, let's not have a rush to judgment. Then he had a rush to judgment, and he was like, oh, I can't take Michigan seriously if they win the national championship. And now he's sucking up to Michigan because Paul knows what's coming. He's got to go to Houston and do a show in front of Michigan fans, and I think he's getting scared. But he was commenting about the end of the Alabama-Michigan game, and he was asked and raised the question if we've seen the last of Nick Saban.
It's possible. It feels like he's very close to the end, and I know a lot of people in Tuscaloosa are worried right now. Saban's back in town after the trip from California. What is he thinking about? Yes, he has. He just had a great recruiting year, but he can't stand the portal. He can't stand NIL, and you just have to wonder whether that was his swan song the other night. It very well could have been.
Yeah, and I do think there is some merit there. I would say right now Saban's back next year. I don't think Saban is retiring. But we've seen Roy Williams, Mike Krzyzewski, and I know those guys were older, and then a younger Jay Wright all walk away. And I think a lot of those situations, it had to deal with the changing landscape of college football or college basketball. All right, we just had Chris Peterson on. You could tell that he doesn't like that there's no order that's going on and structure that's going on in college football right now. And I know a lot of times when coaches speak out about that, it's like, oh, you make all this money. Why are you complaining that players are making the money? It's not that. It's just how it is playing out and how there's no structure and there's no rules right now that gets frustrating. And you also have to change your coaching style. Hey, Chris even said it. Like, you can't be a my way or the highway type of coach anymore because then your players are going to leave. So I don't think Saban's coaching for another 5 to 10 years. And I don't think he's that far away from retiring, but I don't think he's on the 18th hole yet. Like, he's not getting ready to walk into the clubhouse. You know, he may be on 16, he may be on 17, but he hasn't hit 18. He's not on the green of 18 just yet. I think he'll be back next year. All righty, that's a news brief. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. We will take a timeout. We'll come on back with our Ask the Pros question. Also, give you an early look ahead to the Bills-Dolphins matchup, and we'll get into a little more Michigan football conversation. Should J.J. McCarthy come on back next year? If Michigan wins, is there an asterisk on their national championship? We'll get into all that to wrap up the show next. Update time first. Here he is, the Act Man, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
Well, Lamar Jackson's MVP candidacy will not have one more argument. He'll rest for the season finale, with the Ravens having already locked up the top seed in the AFC. The Chiefs, they're number 3 and taking no chances with Patrick Mahomes since they can't move up any. They'll start Blaine Gabbert this week, and the Browns are putting Joe Flacco in bubble wrap, starting Jeff Driscoll, and P.J. Walker serves as the backup, while Matthew Stafford will have this week off before the postseason, with Carson Wentz starting for the Rams, and the 49ers aren't taking any chances with Brock Purdy. He will sit too for the finale. It's been a lost season for the 4-12 Cardinals, and now they've lost veteran tackle DJ Humphries for the finale with a torn ACL. The Bucs have been among the Eastern Conference contenders, currently second, 2 games behind idle Boston. The Pacers hoping to join that conversation. The in-season tournament finalists have used that as a springboard. Indiana has won 4 in a row and will meet the Bucs tonight, with Milwaukee looking for its 25th win. Minnesota also going for win number 25 of the year. They came up short on Monday at Madison Square Garden and will host the Pelicans. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Have a Take, the Jim Rome Show, weekday afternoons on CBS Sports Radio. CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Zach Gelb Show is on the air across the nation on CBS Sports Radio.
For Tua, now he's healthy and he's playing good football. He's not playing elite football. He's not a quarterback that I think wins a Super Bowl this year. But look how long it's taken Miami to find the guy that they like. Just like, not even love, since Dan Marino left them. So I'm not saying that you have to be head over heels in love with the quarterback. But if you like that quarterback, you know what life is like when you don't have a quarterback that you even like.
Here's Zach Gelb.
All righty, it's time to answer Ask the Pros question of the day, and it's brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Jacob in Michigan says, Zach, do you believe J.J. McCarthy should return for another season, regardless of what happens on Monday night? You could submit a question by tweeting at CBS Sports Radio or at Zach Gelb using the hashtag Ask the Pros. You can think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. O'Reilly Auto Parts. By the way, friend of show, Chris Jenkins of the Michigan football team, is going to join us tomorrow on a Thursday extravaganza of the Zach Gelb Show, Monday through Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern, noon to 3 p.m. Pacific. So we appreciate Chris Jenkins jumping on board with us tomorrow as he gets ready to play for a national championship on Monday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. And I'll be there in attendance. So make sure you give us a follow on social media at Zach Gelb. Instagram, Twitter will give you all the behind-the-scenes action before the game, during the game, after the game. I'll be very active on social media for the national championship game. And I'll be doing the show from one of our affiliates in Houston on Monday. And then I'll bolt over to the stadium, watch the game. I got a hotel, actually, for Monday night. I don't know how long I'm going to be at that hotel, though. The game starts at 7:30. So after, like, all the media availability afterwards, let's say, like, I get out of there midnight, maybe 1 in the morning, right? You probably think midnight, 1 in the morning. Then my flight is at 6 in the morning. So I guess, like, once I get back from the game and doing all the post-game work, but 2? If I'm in bed by 2, I'll be happy. Because then I'll get I won't even get a few hours. Because you got to I'm staying a mile from the airport, which is smart. So I could technically leave the airport at, 4:30 and still probably make the 6 o'clock flight and be okay and get through security. You got TSA pre-check. But your boy's going to be tired on Tuesday. But I'll be here with a ton of energy. I'll drink some coffee, and we'll be good. Now, anyway, to Jacob in Michigan's question. But you're now concerned about Tuesday's show, Samter?
No. I'm just warning everybody, be prepared for the Gelb and Samter show on Tuesday.
Yeah.
I'm going to be hopping on all day long.
You'll put me to sleep.
That's the plan, man. It's my big break.
Won't be the first radio host to go to sleep on the air, if you know what I'm saying. As Pat Boyle would say, "Ayo." But anyway, I do think J.J. McCarthy should return to Michigan. I don't think he will. Because in all likelihood, Jim Harbaugh is going to get a job, and then anyone that was on the fence is going to get a job in the NFL. There's going to be this max exodus from Ann Arbor, and you're going to have a lot of guys going. But we just did a segment earlier, and we don't know if McCarthy's declaring or not. How many quarterbacks are going to go in the first round? And people were talking about, clearly, Williams and May, and then you have Jaden Daniels, the Heisman Trophy winner at LSU, Michael Penix Jr. I don't think Bo Nix is a first-round talent. Some others may. And there's a few other guys as well. We didn't really mention J.J. McCarthy, though. And I'm going to say McCarthy because the question was, should he return? He should return even if he wins a national championship. And I understand the other side of the argument, well, stock will never be higher. But there's so many quarterbacks this year. I don't know what next year's necessarily going to look like. And if you're like maybe the fourth or fifth guy this year, maybe you could be the second or the first guy next year. And especially if you're doing it without Harbaugh next year, I think your stock, even though your team won't be as good, it could get worse. But if you play well, it could actually get better than what it would be right now. But I don't think he is going to return to Michigan next year, even though I think he should. And also, I think is the guy's name Chris Barnwell? I want to say that's the guy's name at ESPN. That sounds right. So if it's not, I apologize. But he had like an article a week or two ago. And the sentiment in that article, if I remember it correctly, was that McCarthy would be a first-round pick if he comes on out. I like McCarthy as a college quarterback. I just don't think he's going to be a great NFL quarterback. So I think it would be smart to stay another year. But if you win a national championship, and let's say you win the national championship game MVP, is your stock ever going to be better than that? If you're going to be a first round, then why go back to college? But I think he could be like maybe the second guy off the board next year, where if he's going this year, maybe at best you're going to be the fourth, probably the fifth quarterback that gets taken off the board. And also, I hear this take a little bit. There's some people this week, because there's a lot of people that parachute in as college football fans, and then there's others that watch the entire year. So whether you're just parachuting in or you watch the entire year, anyone having the take this week that Michigan needs to have an asterisk on their national championship game, if they win the title, it's ridiculous. And here's why it's ridiculous. Because the last few weeks, ever since this scandal broke, we have not seen a drop-off in this Michigan team. And everyone knows now that they can't be cheating. They lined up against Penn State, and they said, we don't give a rat's ass. We know you can't stop our run game. We're only going to throw the ball one time in the second half, and we're going to run the ball down your throat. Against Ohio State, they didn't have Harbaugh on the sideline. They still won the game because their defense made a play on Kyle McCord. And then up against the great Nick Saban, Michigan didn't even play a great game, and they almost fumbled the game away, and they still won. So stop with this nonsense. It's like the same thing that was overblown with Deflategate, where we make this big deal because you have a team that's a winner, you have a team that's good, and you have a bunch of fan bases because they can't beat that team, cough, cough, Ohio State and Penn State fans that are whining and bitching and complaining. Oh, we can't beat Michigan. Like, give me a break. Seriously. This asterisk talk is just insufferable. Everything has been clean. And Michigan, we know they only really had 2 games anyway in the regular season. It was Penn State and it was Ohio State. And everything was clean in those situations.
I mean, listen, Connor Stallions was at the Rose Bowl, so
By the way,
I'm just saying.
That was kind of baller. You would like.
It's pretty baller.
I think the guy's name, it was Jastrzemski and McNally were the Deflategate guys for the Patriots. I don't even know if those guys are still alive. Like, you have not heard from them at all. Stallions was sitting next to Chase Winovich. So that's kind of wild that he was there. And not only was he there, he was like 8 rows off the field.
8 rows? He was like 2 rows off the field. He was right there.
Yeah, he was right there.
That was a big middle finger to the NCAA right there, and the Big Ten.
I kind of like it, too. I thought it was funny. I would love it. You know how they have all these special broadcasts? Like they have the Manning cast, right? They had McAfee and company on the sidelines. With how much of a crazy fan Stallions looks like, and some of those videos that we've seen of him just going bonkers, rooting for Michigan football even before when he was a part of the team, I would sign up for a Connor Stallions broadcast. I would offer my broadcasting services to broadcast that with Connor Stallions. There's 3 people I hope I run into when I'm at the national championship game. Tom Brady, Connor Stallions, and I got to give you a third one because I said there was 3. It's really only 2.
Braylon Edwards?
Nah.
Tyrone Wheatley?
Nah.
Jim Harbaugh's parents.
Oh, nah.
Did you see that interview, though?
Yeah. You know what? I love the video. I don't know if I want to be sitting next to his parents during the game. Because if I have to then switch seats during the game or deal with mom during the game, I'm good.
Dude, Jim is literally a clone of his dad. It's incredible.
Oh, yeah, it's great. If I didn't see the video and I just heard it, I would have thought it was Jim Harbaugh speaking.
But just look at the video also, to his point. His face, he looks more like Jim than he does like John. Do you think John's going to be there? They'll have a bye week. They'll have a meaningless game on Sunday. You think he flies out and he's at the game?
I think he will.
He has to be, right?
Yeah.
They're on a bye.
He'll definitely be there.
Yeah.
I got to imagine that he's going to be there, John Harbaugh. Because also he has all the money in the world. Get on a private jet. You shoot in early Monday morning. You're home late Monday night, early Tuesday morning. Now, who's the third one that I want to see at this game? That's a big question. Any there's famous alums all over the board. You know what? I would like to see Portnoy do a pizza review at the national championship game.
What about Schefter?
I like Shefty. I don't know if Schefter's going to be there, though. It's Black Monday in the NFL. I heard him earlier in the week saying that ESPN wants him in studio for Black Monday. I tell my bosses, hey, I'm Adam Schefter. I'm going to be here for this. I'll go on Zoom like everybody else does. So, anyway, that is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio on a busy Wednesday edition. I'd like to thank Chris Peterson for stopping by, Fozzie Whitaker as well. We'll get into some of this Dolphins-Bills game coming up a little bit more throughout the week. That's your Sunday night football game this week. The winner wins the AFC East. Dolphins already in the playoffs. There is a chance if the Bills lose this game that they are on the outside looking in when Sunday does wrap up for the top 7 teams in the AFC. Once again, Chris Jenkins from the Michigan football team going to stop by tomorrow with us. Big thanks to Pat Boyle, Moist Mike as well, each and every one of you for calling, listening, and tweeting. 2 shows down, many more to come in the year of 2024. We'll be back tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, and all of our great local CBS Sports Radio affiliates, Sirius XM Channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and also stream us. Make sure you do that. Let's get the stream going. Let's make the stream popping again. YouTube.com/CBS Sports Radio. Would love to interact with you. I am on the YouTube chat all the time. All righty. We're out. Have a great night, everybody. Bye-bye. Peace.